TheoTrade. This is Don Kaufman. April 14th, 2021. Minutes after the cash close here on this Wednesday afternoon with the SPOOs down about 10 handles. But it's the Nasdaq that's actually grabbed our attention in today's trading session, off by the tune of about 1%. Based on what? Well, the debut of Coinbase. What you're about to see here is, well, fairly uncanny, is the fact that, again, a major debut of Coinbase. Now, I would be remiss to not want to call this an IPO, but technically, Coinbase is not an IPO. It's actually a direct listing on a major exchange. And with that direct listing, the kind of the come out trades, that's that first few moments of trade, literally tanked the marketplace. Let's take a look at that here before we dig a little bit deeper into the overall marketplace. All right, what you're actually looking at, and again, I actually wanted to draw a couple of conclusions from here. This is the S&P versus Coin. And to get really, really specific, we'll look at exact time frames. We are on Pacific time now. So this is approximately 10:25 Pacific time. You'll see me highlighting this. And literally, the S&Ps are impacted almost immediately following, the onset of trade from Coin. Now, Coin, all right, traded for a high of, almost 430, a low of 310. You laugh, you cried. It closed in the 330 handle here. Nevertheless, it does appear that we had this direct listing today, and that's what actually sparked, if you will, a bit of possibly a little bit of a top in the marketplace, if you will. Now, you can also go ahead and you can compare this, if you'd like, over to the Nasdaq, and I'd be really specific. I'd want to use the Nasdaq futures, and again, zoom in to a specific time frame, and that time frame is right around 10:25. That first couple of trades, there's a bid to the upside, and again, if I get this zoomed in just perfectly for you here, you can see though that the trade inside of Coin, it almost looked like a coordinated effort, if you will, to sell the Nasdaq thereafter, a really high degree of correlation. With that, the reason that I'm kind of pointing a finger and saying, it's Coinbase over here, you take a look at like the correlation coefficient in the S&P 100, there isn't one, The Russell, well, I mean, come on. The Russell actually was still bid up on the day, and the Russell had some sell-side activity well off the highs of the trading session. We had a nice intraday trade here on the Russell, and the Russell once again becomes Mr. Toad's wild ride. But yeah, this looks like a sector rotation, right? Like, let's get out of the Nasdaq and into the Russell. But again, most of the sell-side activity inside of the Nasdaq and the S&Ps coincided again with this onset of this direct listing, which of course is Coin. Now, this is not completely nuts. I mean, we've seen crazy things in the marketplace before, effectively with certain IPOs, if you will, marking tops. Certain deals in the past have also marked tops over there. Come on. People are still talking about like the AOL Time Warner merger from the the late 90s in here. Nevertheless, the point that I wanted to make over here, look at also the size, the volume that actually traded through here, some 80 million shares in this direct listing. Again, getting crushed though in its kind of come out debut. Switching gears, let's talk a little bit about a few of the sectors on this trading session, which are, well, all over the place. The financials were actually up some 21 cents, which is good for 0.6%. Again, with the monsters of tech down about almost 1.5%. Now, the reason, again, that I key into these two sectors is we've actually seen a lot of sector rotation, right? But lately, we've actually had correlation between those two sectors. Today, it's a little bit of what? Out of monsters of tech into some of the financials, into, of course, none other than the Russell. And the odd product out, once again, happens to be none other than the bonds. So the reason I'm actually bringing the bonds into this equation, the bonds, as of late, have been massively unchanged. This is something I've actually talked about kind of week in and week out. How, well, the last couple of weeks, the bonds have been totally flat, but have kind of boxed in. And again, the reason I bring up the bonds in reference to today's sell side activity, They did not play a role. And if you remember back just a couple of weeks ago, any selling inside of the Nasdaq, and for a brief and fleeting moment, again, just a few weeks ago, we did see some fairly wicked and tumultuous sell-side activity inside of the Nasdaq that was actually brought on by the bonds seeing sell-side activity. Today is really one of the first days that we've actually seen sell-side activity inside of the Nasdaq with the bonds not being in that equation. And I want you to think about that for just a moment, because again, there was no signal, no rhyme, no reason, no correlation coefficient. Quite frankly, not even the volatility picked its head up off the mat for any of this selling. I mean, what do you expect? The fact that the S&Ps are down 10? No, but a 1% move in a major index, is still a 1% move. Now, I will give you one kind of odd product out in the midst of some of this selling that, well, did actually portend that there could be more risk coming. If we look down towards the bottom of the screen, take a look at the VVIX. This happens to be the volatility of the volatility index. Now, again, you will also recall that just about a week ago, we had discussed that there was a massive, just massive call buyers specifically inside of the VIX, okay? And that may have actually, if you will, signaled the bottom of volatility in the VIX. Remember, the VVIX, or the volatility index, okay, is actually measuring option volatility in the VIX itself. And there is absolutely unequivocally, there's bidders for volatility inside of the VIX. You may not necessarily see that reflected inside of the S&Ps, okay? But what in effect we have here, again, is a debut of Coinbase causing sell-side activity in the marketplace. Not really too many of like those risk, indicators. They're not lighting up. You don't really see it inside of the volatility futures. You don't really see it inside of the VIX, okay? The bonds are not necessarily moving. I think most people would probably just brush aside some of the selling that actually occurred today. I won't, not until we actually see, if you will, the VVIX backing off. Right now, the VVIX is saying the exact opposite. It is effectively bid right now, which says, be on your game. In fact, the VVIX even cracked into the oh so important 110 handle, which is kind of what we term, the VAMA zone. Last but not least, on this kind of Wednesday night update, we always take a look at the SPX and the expected move, for the entire week. And what we have here, well, is absolutely nothing. That is, we were looking, not for a huge move, but we're looking for about a $60 move either higher and or lower. Basically, the expected move this week was identical to the previous week. How much have we actually moved this week? Well, if you take a look, this center line here is coming off of Friday afternoon's close. We're sitting on it right now. So net, I want you to think about coming into Thursday and Friday and seeing substantial movement. Not only didn't we touch the upper and or lower edge of the expected move, we've done absolutely nothing at this point. We're right back where we started the week. Again, that coupled with the fact the VVIX is on the bid, there are a few earnings announcements, but people, again, push it aside. Doesn't seem to be kind of impeding upon the broader marketplace. Earnings at this point in time are not necessarily taking center stage until maybe next week when some of the big tech companies come out. For right now, focus, attention in terms of volatility. Volatility right now is lying dead on the floor. If there's going to be any sell-side activity to the broader marketplace, you're going to feel it. You're going to see it in both the volatility futures. You're going to feel it and see it in the VIX, And of course, look for the correlation coefficient to pick up. Thanks everybody for joining us here at TheoTrade. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.